Well, hello there, all of my followers and subscribers and memberships. This is for you. After recovering from the previous accident from the truck, around 2018, Uber started coming into the picture in Las Vegas, where I was living. And I was able to raise enough money to buy a car, and I decided around mid-2018 I'd go ahead and Uber drive in Las Vegas. Now, I was already on disability. So the rules are, at that time, you were allowed to make around $500-$600 a month without hitting a tax problem and having to report additional income. And basically, for every dollar, you lose 50 cents, so it doesn't pay. So I part-time drove Uber because I was kind of bored being at home. And Uber was pretty good for the first 6 months to a year because it was new, and they offered all kinds of incentives for people to get rides. Very, very low rates and or packages, like for every 7 rides you get the next 2 free, things like that, all kinds of incentives. And the rate was very low, what they charge them, but the rate that they pay the drivers was very high. Basically a lost leader for them, but they wanted to tie up Las Vegas before Lyft came into the picture. Lyft did finally come in to Las Vegas, but at least 6 months later. And then there was continued conflict between the two companies, the rivals, and they'd offer different incentives so that people would switch over both ways. And Uber was feeling the pinch that Lyft was starting to do even better deals. They also had special events in Las Vegas where they would offer us drivers big money to deal with things like convention centers, airports. The airport was a real problem because we had no parking on the airport, so we had to park off the airport. And they kept moving us further and further away, and so it would take 5 minutes. You'd have to be in queue, and it would take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to get a call. Excuse me. And you'd be in queue, and you'd be like the 30th, the 40th, the 50th, the 60th person, okay? And you'd be sitting there cooling your heels, which doesn't make any money because you only make money, again, when the wheels turn and you have a passenger. And it didn't really pay to wait an hour because you'd lose too much money. But if you waited 30 minutes or so, you would get it queued up, and they'd tell you to go to either to the Airport 1 or Airport 3 parking area. Now, a lot of times people would put in the wrong information at Las Vegas. There was no 2, so it was either 1 or 3. And people would pick 3, but they're actually over at Terminal 1. And you go over to Terminal 3, and there's nobody there to pick up, and you call them, and they go, well, I don't know where I am. I just picked something. Well, to get from Terminal 3 to Terminal 1, you actually have to depart from the airport and go back in. There wasn't any easy way. There was the rows between 1 and 3 were like spaghetti. It was confusing. So a lot of times it'd be easier just to go out to Paradise Road and come back in, and then be direct to Terminal 1. But at this point, you're aggravated, and they're aggravated because they did it wrong. And then while you're doing that, and you're going, okay, well, I'll be there in a few minutes. You put in Terminal 3. I'm at Terminal 3. I'm going to have to come over to Terminal 1. They'd cancel. They'd cancel. And then guess what? You got nothing, and now you got to go back to the parking lot, okay? You didn't get paid anything. You'd go back to the parking lot, and you'd be back in queue for another 30 minutes to an hour. So I never did the airport. Airport was always squirrely, okay? The airport was a total pain. Too much waste of time. I never did the Strip either, because when someone wanted to go from the airport to the Strip, it's a 5-minute ride. There's no money in 5-minute rides. Or if you pick somebody up at the Strip, it was forever to get into the hotel. Always a lot of cars and long lines to get into the hotel to pick up the person. And then all they wanted to do is go down the Strip a couple thousand yards, and go to another hotel. They just didn't feel like walking. It was too hot. Besides the fact that during the day it's super hot in Vegas. So I drove only at night. I started anywhere between 8 and 10 p.m., and I'd work through the night till morning. Now, the good part about it is cooler. So if you use the air conditioner, your air conditioner would easily keep up even if it's a warm night. But during the day, your air conditioner wouldn't keep up, and people would give you 1 star because it was warm in the car, But they booked for an economy car, and then there was a period of time that there was share rides, which they stopped in COVID. In 2020, they stopped that. But between 2018 and 2020, around March, April, January, February, March, around April, they stopped the ride shares. But during that time, there was always a problem anyway, because sometimes you'd pick up, they're going, well, how come you're not taking me? I'm right down this way. How come you're not taking me? Well, Uber would say, you have to follow their path, okay? You can't take them. You can't take wherever you want, whenever you want, however you want. You'd have to go pick up your second ride, and it might be because they got a discount. They're just passengers in the back of your car while you go off the strip, go to a hotel that's off the strip, pick up another passenger or two, and then go back to the strip to drop them off, okay? Because the passengers that may be off the strip also want to go to the same hotel that you're going to, so you would remove all your passengers at one location. They decided, Uber did, how you got the direction that you drove, the streets you drove, you couldn't go off their route, and they'd route you. They decide what your route's going to be. Passengers weren't happy. Sometimes passengers were the first to get on, then there was a second pickup, then there was a third pickup, and then the second pickup would be the first one to get off, not the first one. So they're riding in the car longer, and they go, well, that's not fair. I've been here longer. Well, I didn't make the decisions, okay? Uber did. Well, you get 1 star, all right? Or no tip. So it was kind of a bummer. Now, when Uber first started, you had a tip in cash. There was no tip on the app. And honestly, you made a lot more money when people would tip you in cash than you'd ever make when they tip you on the app. Because on the app, they could tip you for $1 and say, oh, I got you covered, I'll tip you later. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. Usually it was for a lot less, and they're not looking at you in the face and handing you $1. But they tip you $1 if it was on the app on their phone after they're already wherever they wanted to be, out of the car, and not look at you in the face. But when they look at you in the face, you took them, you did a good job, they'd give you $5, $10. I even got $100 tips sometimes. I usually converse with my, I'm a chatterbox, so I converse with my passengers. I had a small dog, a Chihuahua, a miniature Chihuahua, black, and because I drove at night, you wouldn't even see him. He was in a cat bed on my dash, okay, which was also dark color, and he would not move. He would just stay still. Every once in a while, he might get up and turn around, and people would freak out because they thought it was one of those bouncy head dogs. They just thought, this guy's old. He just has one of those head bobble dogs. But no, the dog would actually get up, turn around, and lie down. They go, that dog's real. So people would love the dog, and they like to tell them stories and stuff. And some of the stories of the strange Uber rides that I would get, because I worked nights, I would get strange Uber rides, very strange, from the pimp and his girls to the hookers I picked up at the apartment. There's 3 hookers, all of them dressed to the hilt, all gorgeous, all young, all talking in the back. And I had a recording device in there, so I record both inside and out, videotaping inside and out. I did have a drive. I don't know what you call it, a thumb drive, that had them all on there. But I never got releases, so I can't use it because I never got the releases to use it. Hilarious stuff. Girls would be talking about their Johns, and how they took advantage of them or what they did, or the girl would get in the car and the guy paid for it to take her home, and then she'd say to me, that's not really my address. I'm gonna have you change the address, okay, because she didn't want the guy to know where she lived, and she'd change the address to further up the block or another block away or a similar name, and then she'd call her girlfriend, and she was gay. She's talking to her girlfriend, and she's talking like, "Oh, I got this guy good. He bought me drinks. He bought me a dress. He went shopping. He tipped me a few hundred, blah, blah, blah." I had the craziest stories, which we might go into. But it was fun driving. I had a lot of fun because I get to socialize with people, except for every once in a while you get a loser. I mean, I got a lady that came in one time at the D when they changed it to the D, and not Einstein, I'm sorry. Louie was my little black dog, that miniature, and she saw Louie and says, "Is that dog real?" And I go, "Yeah." She says, "Well, I'm allergic to dogs." I says, "Oh, that's a shame." Now, we had already taken off. We had already closed doors. She was already sitting, and she was already complaining about something. I don't remember what. You know how to get there, blah, blah, blah. It's like they're always going to tell you how to get there. No, I have it. It's on my GPS. I have it. I says, they tell me exactly the route I have to take, blah, blah, blah. And so she goes, "Well, I'm allergic to dogs. I can't have a dog in the car." I said, "Okay, well, I can pull over and let you off, and you can get another ride. I'm very sorry." She says, "Well, are you allowed to have dogs in your car?" I mean, I don't think you should have dogs in your car. You really shouldn't. I'm going to have to report you. And I said, I'll just pulled over. And I says, "Well, the ride's over." She goes, "What do you mean?" I says, "Well, Louie is family. You're a guest in my car. You are no longer invited as a guest in my car. You can get out now." And she was like horrified. I'm sure she gave me a -10 stars if she could. But whatever, Louie was my baby. You don't talk bad about my family. So Louie was the cutest thing in the world. She wasn't. But you get people like I had a family that came in from out of state, and they own a animal, a vet, hospital, as well as sales and retail sales in another small town. And they just loved Louie. They didn't want to leave. They says, "Can we just keep driving?" He says, "Never mind our stop. We're going to give you another stop to go to." And because they just play with the dog. And so they just kept me busy for an hour while they played with Louie. Because Louie was the cutest thing. Okay. And every once in a while I stopped, let Louie out, let him piddle. And number two, it was like a pencil. This dog was so small. He's small. He was never trouble. He was always quiet. He didn't bark at anybody. He never barked. Not your typical Chihuahua, okay? He was very quiet, and he was very sweet. He got stolen, by the way, which is a shame. I got tricked in letting someone watch the dog, and they stole the dog. They claimed that the dog was stolen, but I know that they were involved, just by the way that their story didn't jive. But Louie did get stolen, unfortunately, and I didn't have him with the chip, so I couldn't find him. It was a shame. But he was given to me, and I guess he was a very valuable dog, being a miniature. In any case, I loved driving Uber in Las Vegas at nights. You'd get drunks. Yes, they'd get sick in the car. Yes, they'd barf. And then they had to pay hundreds of dollars because my trip is my night's over. I got to go get the car professionally cleaned and submit a bill, and I get paid for the whole night or whatever I normally make. So it could be $100, $200 for the cleanup, and I can also get $200, $250. Sometimes it wasn't bad, and sometimes it was bad, but they're drunk, or they'd knock out, and I'd be worried about them getting drunk because they're laying down. I go, "No, you need to sit up, don't lie down." Or a couple times I opened the door and said, you're going to be sick, go outside and get sick. I said, the ride's over. I could tell they're already gagging, they're going to be sick. It's just gross. But sometimes you get funny ones. Now the funny ones were the girl had just gotten she was drunk. She was drunk as a skunk. She was at the Golden Nugget. They told me to come around to the backside. You don't usually pick up in the back. They told me to come around the backside and see the doorman. And that was the message I got. And I said, okay. And he called me and he told me where to go. And I went to the back door, not where the people go in and out, but literally a back door. This girl's on the floor, laughing, giggling, cute little thing. Doorman said, "Hey, I need you to take her home. She wants to go to her boyfriend's. I gave you the address, and we're paying for it." Okay, fine. That's fine. I don't care who pays for it. Okay, put her in. I told him, make sure you give me a tip. And I'm taking her along. And I said, put her in the front seat because I need to keep an eye on her because she's drunk. She gets sick. I got to open the door and kick her out. Okay, so she was really sweet. She was funny, and she was talking a lot. And she goes, "I just got a boob job. You want to see?" And with that, she just pulled her top down. And I said, they're very nice. Now, meanwhile, I'm trying to drive and concentrate, okay? And I'm like, I can't drive and concentrate. She goes, you want to feel them? You want to feel them? I'm like, I'm trying to drive, okay? I mean, but yeah, I do, but okay, fine, whatever. And after that, she goes, how about you take me home? How about you take me home? And I'm like, I am so tempted. But this was Vegas. She was, I don't know, maybe 18, maybe. Okay, I doubt if she was 20. And I already had adult boys, and I'm going, no, we're taking you to your boyfriend's house, okay? And she goes, oh, I don't really want to see him. He kicked me out. I just gave him that address because they needed an address. I says, well, I'll take you somewhere else if you want, but you can't come back to my place. I could just see sirens and flashes before the police lineup, not happening. So I ended up taking her to the Strip, and she wandered off to another club or find a guy. I don't know. I had many, many strange ones. She's just unbelievable. I had a little Chinese guy that came in. This was a rideshare time. They stopped the rideshares. I don't know if they ever brought him back, but he was a little Chinese proper man in a suit and tie, older, and he didn't speak much English. But I said, he picked rideshare. I don't think he realized he picked rideshare because a lot of people just look at the lowest rate and they pick that thinking that, oh, maybe that's more direct or something. But the lowest rate is actually you share the ride. So he picked the lowest rate, and I says, why don't you come in the front because you're one person. I'm probably going to get another call for 2 more people in the back. He says, no, I'm okay. Okay. He sits in the back. And he's sitting on the side, passenger side behind my right chair, my right seat, and I have the direction where he's going. He's very quiet, and then I get a beep, and it tells me I'm picking up 2 more people at an apartment complex. I says, okay, we have 2 more people to pick up. He didn't say anything, and I could see when I park the car, it's dark. It wasn't a lit parking lot, but I could see 2 big, what looked like guys, burly guys with beards, mustache, and long blonde wigs, in dresses with heels coming up to either side of my back doors. And I'm like, what the hell? Is this drag? What is this? They opened up both back doors, and he slid to the middle. Okay? And I said, you sure you don't want to come up front? And he goes, no, I'm okay. So they slid on either side of him. Big guys. Okay, made me look small. These guys were 6 foot something. Dress drag. They were definitely drag. Okay, so I just go, where are you ladies going tonight? Even though it says on there, just make conversation. What am I going to say? Where do you guys want to go? I don't know. I said, where do you ladies want to go? So they say, oh, we're going to such and such hotel and have some drinks. There's it's drag night, at such and such club. Okay. Well, he's looking left and he's looking right, and his arms are folded, and he's trying to hide. He's trying to get smaller. Okay, like he's in a like there's some kind of protection dome around him that there isn't. And I get that. They get off first before him. He's still in the back seat, and they got out. They said thanks. He says you're welcome. They got out, big dudes, and then he looked at me and he looks and he puts his hand on my. I come forward now. I come forward. It's okay. I come front. It was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious. This guy was so funny. And he came up to the front seat. I swear he was shaking. Poor guy. Welcome to Las Vegas. That's all I could say. We'd get all types. I had one time picked up at a club in a rough area. It was a young fella. He was obviously intoxicated, maybe on drugs. I don't know. He said, I lost my wallet. I don't have any money. I called you on the phone, but I can't pay you because there's no money in the account. I can send you money later. I says, what's the deal? He says, I got to get home. I have no way to get home. My friends left me. It was like 2, 3 in the morning. And I says, okay, hop in. I says, do you mind if I pick up somebody along the way? We might get a ride out, because he was out in Summerlin, which is a long ways. And he says, no, I didn't mind. I says, well, we're just going to drive there. and see if I get a call. And if I get a call, I may have to go back and get them and then take them and then get you. But eventually I'll get to Summerlin. And so you could just hang out in the front seat. Actually I had them in the front seat, and I said, just hang out. And if anybody asks, tell them you got left as a ride share or something of that nature, or you're learning, you're in learning, and you're just watching me do my thing as you're learning how to do it. He said, okay. He pretty much fell asleep. He was pretty wasted. Anyway, I did get him home, and he was very thankful. And sometimes you just do things like that because, I have kids, which reminds me of the girl I picked up downtown Las Vegas, which is the true Las Vegas is downtown. And she couldn't figure out where she was, but she needed to pick up, and she was crying. I said, okay. So I'm trying to find her, and I says, what do you see around you? And after she told me a few names, I figured out what street she's on, because I'd been driving so much, you get to know all the places. And when I got her, she was hiding behind the car, sitting on, with her feet in the gutter, sitting on, on the sidewalk with her feet in the gutter behind a car. All I saw were the feet. And so I kind of I'm slowing down, and I'm trying to look for her, and I only see the feet. And I says, do you have white shoes on? She goes, yeah. Okay. I says, can you stand up? She goes, I don't think so. Well, okay. So we get out there. I go, I'm going to say Scarlett. I don't remember her name. Scarlett, is that you? And she goes, yeah. I says, okay, I'm your Uber driver. Can I help you to the car? And she said she was totally wasted. She said, my friends left me, and this is their car, and I was waiting by their car, but I need to get home. I don't feel so good. I'm going, oh God, another one that's going to throw up in my car. Young, very young, under 20, young, probably under 18, I don't know. And I says, okay, I'm going to put you in the front seat so I can watch you. So she says, well, she got in the car. I closed it. I went inside. She also was out pretty far ways, beyond Summerlin, in fact. And that's probably a good 30-minute drive, which is far for Vegas because you can get one into the other at nighttime in about 45 minutes. And so she says, I feel really hot. I'm burning up. I'm hot. I says, well, it's kind of cold out. How about I just roll the windows down? But then it wasn't. It was just cool. She says, no, I'm really hot. She says, I need more air. I says, well, I'll tell you what, go to the back. She says, can I go to the back seat, lie down? I'm going, I don't know. She goes, I really need to lie down. And I'm thinking, this is just getting worse and worse. We're digging a hole here. She went to the back seat, between the seats. I had bucket seats. She went to the back, and she opened up the windows. I said, I'm going to open up the windows, but I can't put the air on. It's just too cold. And this was during the winter time, so the air is cold. And she was hot. So I'm driving. She's quiet. I said, you okay, Scarlett? She's not answering. She must have gone to sleep. Okay, as long as she's sleeping, she'll be fine. And I get to the address and the street's correct, but the number isn't correct, and the GPS is jumping back and forth. I'm going, what the heck's going on? I'm not finding. So I try to wake her up by shouting to her. I says, what's your number? I says, I don't think you put the number in right. And she's not answering. So I pull over in a very quiet neighborhood. I go into her purse. I open up the back door. I go into her purse to find her driver's license. She's out. I try shaking her. She's out cold. Now, when I put the dome light on and I open the door, the shock of my life is she had absolutely no clothing on. Nothing. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, this girl is completely nude in my back seat lying down. And I'm looking for her clothes, and they're nowhere in my car. So she must have thrown the clothes out on the freeway. I thought maybe she threw it in the back. It's a hatchback. No, they're not there. There's no clothes. This girl's naked. Now, luckily, she didn't throw her purse away. And I pull out her driver's license, and basically, I'm within 2 doors of where she wanted to be. She just reversed 2 numbers in the middle. So I'm just a couple doors. So I'm going like, okay, I call my friend. Hey, Charles, I don't know what to do here. Okay, I have a girl that was obviously drunk, and she gave me the wrong address. I'm now moving to the right address, but it's like 3 a.m. in the morning. I says, and she's completely naked, and he's just cracking up and dying. He says, oh, great, that's great. He says, well, why don't you take your shirt off and put it on her? I go, well, how's that going to help me? Okay, I'll have no shirt, and she is wearing my top. I says, she's a young girl. I says, I don't think so. And he goes, well, you can take off your bottoms too. I says, then I'm going to be in my underwear. in my drawers, and she's going to have my clothes on? I says, that even sounds worse. He's just dying away laughing. I says, some lifeline you are. You're not helping me here, Charles. He says, well, he says, you can go to the police station. I'm going, yeah, and get arrested. I says, I don't think I want to do that. And I said, he says, well, you could put her outside and like Hollywood Nights, put her in front of the door, ring the doorbell, and ditch her. I honestly considered that. I remember the basket. They put the girl in the basket and rolled her in, and then ding-dong ditch. Okay, well, I'd been fine, except the fact that she booked me, and so they know who the driver is. How would that look if I ding-dong and they have a naked girl in front of their door? I don't think so. That's not going to work. That's so irresponsible anyway. I figured, okay, well, now so I said, well, let me make sure she's still breathing, okay, because I'm not sure if she's even breathing. So I pull up in front of the door where her house is, pitch black out there, middle of the night. And I'm trying to feel or hear her breathing, and she is breathing. Okay, fine. So she's alive, thank God. I'm thinking, should I take her to the hospital? No. I'll try the door. I says, hopefully the wife answers, because the wives are usually more understandable. And I had her driver's license in my hand. In her purse, I saw bottles. Wasn't her name, of Xanax and other pills. So I know what she did. She took pills and drank alcohol. So I know why she was acting the way she did, and she's out. Okay, so I just took her driver's license, and I went to the front door, and I'm ringing the bell a few times, but it's pitch black. There's no lights on in the house. So light comes on the stairway, and I could see through the little windows in the door the mother coming down, who had put on a nightgown, and the mother's coming down to answer the door. And she goes, "Who is it?" I says, "I'm an Uber driver, and I believe I may have your daughter in my car." So she opens the door, and I showed her the picture. I says, "That's your daughter." She goes, "Is she okay?" I says, "She's fine. She's perfectly fine. She's in my car, but she drank too much alcohol, and she's passed out, and I can't carry her." And right when I said and I'm leading to the fact that she has no clothes, down comes husband, who looks like a Marine, has a butch haircut, big guy, 6'3" at least, okay, coming down. He says, "Where is she? Where's Denise? Where's Denise?" She asks, "Oh, he's in it. This is the Uber driver. She's in his car, and she passed out, and he can't carry her." "All right, I'll go get her." I said, "Well, hold on now. He just brushed past me. I mean, I'm a little guy compared to this guy." And I'm thinking, run. Maybe I should just run, okay? I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Just run. But he would outrun me anyway, because he looked fit. He looked pretty fit. I wasn't fit. So he opens the door of the car, and I says, "I have to tell you one more thing. Wait." And he opens the door. "She's fucking naked." He's screaming 3 to 5 times in a quiet neighborhood at 4 in the morning, between 3:30 and 4 in the morning. "She's effing naked." I'm like, oh shit, I'm dead. I says, "Let me explain. She took all her clothes off in the back seat, and I guess she threw them out the window. I don't know." I says, I didn't pick her up that way. Okay, I'm innocent. And so they went and got a blanket, and they wrapped it, and they wanted to know, what the story was. And I told them, I says, "Look in her purse, and I think you'll figure out what the story is," because I had to go in her purse to get the right address. I says, "And I have children, so you have to be really careful in Las Vegas, because you can get kidnapped in Las Vegas. You can be in really bad trouble if you're a young girl in Las Vegas, in the position that she was in, alone, taking a ride from a stranger." Very bad situation. Anyway, we ended up, I logged off. We had coffee. I talked to him. He was very nice. He understood. They said, "We're going to have a strong talk with her when she finally wakes up." And we parted friends. So that was one of the more interesting ones. However, Uber driving was tough, because you stay up through the night and then you sleep during the day. Many times people would leave their phones in your car, and then they want you to come back immediately and return their phone. Now, sometimes I would find the phone, okay? Sometimes somebody else would find the phone, and sometimes I never found the phone. Somebody else would get in the back seat. I don't check the car every time somebody goes out. I do check the car every 2 or 3 rides, because people will leave cups or trash, and I'll clean up their trash. People are very trashy in their cars, so they don't respect other people's vehicles. They don't respect their own, so why should they respect mine? But I would pick up napkins or things like that. Sometimes I would find a phone when I clean up. They'd put it in the pocket behind the seat, things like that. And but most everybody was pretty good. I said to them, hey, I'm on duty. I'm working right now. You can come to my place tomorrow. I'm off duty at about 7, 8 a.m., or I'll deliver it to you. The first couple times I delivered it, and I said I would appreciate something because I drove over here. Sometimes it was in Henderson, which is a good 30, 40 minutes away. And sometimes they'd give you a tip, and sometimes they didn't. They just said, no, I appreciate the phone, and they turned around. I says, what about me? I just drove over here. Well, that's your job, they tell you. People are very rude. So what I finally decided, well, you know what, and it happened so often that people would leave a phone and a briefcase once. I said, there's depending on where your location is, $25 to $50 to return it, because that's what I do is I drive, and that's how I get paid. And they'd get really angry, and they'd call and blah, blah, blah. But Uber supported me and said, no. I said, you can come to me for free. I said, or if you want me to deliver it to you, I'm making one trip just for you, round trip. It's $25, depending on where they were, $25, $35. It was very fair. And they had to pay it first before like one time, let me make sure it's my phone. Well, I'm not handing you the phone because I know how it works. You hand them the phone and they go, F you, and they walk away. It's not happening. I show them the phone. I says, here's the phone. Here's what it looks like in my right hand. Here's the window on my left. And bottom line is, if you want it, you have to give me the money first, because I'm not going to be scammed, okay? Not after driving all the way to come to you, okay? And sometimes they're very expensive phones. And one time, somebody didn't get their phone back, and I have a feeling one of the other riders I had grabbed the phone in the back, found it, and figured they'll just steal it, because stealing phones was a very bad habit before they had ways to protect the phones where they'd lock you out, or you can make the phone unusable, especially Apple phones. But this is before that time. So they would sell the phones for parts, or they'd get it unlocked, and they would sell the phone to people. And people steal phones. It was pretty bad. Theft was pretty bad back then. Again, this is like, this would be 2014. No, was it later than that? No, 2000. No, I was on 2000. I'm sorry, 2018. 2018. So anyway, so I did that for a year and a half, and then Uber just started. Uber made a mistake. What happened is, Uber would people would give tips sometimes later, and I had to be careful that the tips and the income did not go over the let's say it was $500. I'm allowed $500 a month without having to get in trouble, and I would lose my disability. If I worked Uber and I got $700-800 a month 3 times in a row, or even 3 times in 5 years, I would lose my disability. Well, I can't afford to lose my disability. Well, and they would report. Okay, if you're on disability, they report it to the IRS. So in any case, one year Uber said, we're giving you a bonus. I had over 20,000 rides because they sent me a bonus for having over 20,000 rides and so many thousands of 5-star rides and blah, blah, blah. And they sent me 100. Well, I was already at 480, something like that. I usually would stop. They put me over the top. So there was one strike. Okay, you're allowed one strike, but then I get a notice from Social Security, hey, you went over. If you do it 2 more times, you lose your disability altogether. So it's like, it's not worth it. So I decided to back off of Uber, and I stopped working. Just a few months later, around 2020, around March is when COVID hit, so it didn't matter anyway. But that was my Uber days, guys. I hope you enjoyed the stories. There was some crazy rides. I'm telling you, I watched a big guy beating on a girl in the backseat of my car for trying to steal money, and he was the pimp. And I told him, you need to stop this. I turned that tape into the police. He didn't realize he was being videotaped. He told me to shut the F up. And he said he was a big guy. I mean, there was no way I was going to take him on. But he was beating this girl up and in the back seat, and I'm going, you got to cut this out. Get out of my car. And he calmed down a little bit, but I could tell he was holding himself to beat her when he got to his destination. I made a copy of that one, and I turned that into the police, and I gave him the information of who booked and the dates and the time and all that, and where I picked him up, where I dropped him off, and they had the video, so they know what he looks like. I don't know if anything ever came of that or not. But sometimes I made mistakes and I'd miss the turn, and the people get very angry at me and they give me 1 star and no tip. It happens. People don't understand that. It's a job, and a lot of times people would love to get in and you booked it, and then on the way, just before they get to their destination, they'll stop the app. They'll just say cancel. Well, then I stop the car and I go, "You're out. Okay, you canceled the ride, and I'm not getting paid for the full ride and destination, so now you can get to walk the rest of the way." One time it was on the freeway, and I let 3 girls out. And they go, "Well, we'll book it again. We'll book it again." I says, "No, you'll book it with somebody else." I says, they admitted they played it. They wanted to see what would happen. Well, now you see what happens and suffer the consequences. Anyway, guys, I loved it. I loved the Uber driving, and I was able to handle that after the truck accident, and I enjoyed driving in Vegas. And actually, I still miss it, but I'd rather do this now. It's a lot easier. All right. Thanks for watching. You guys, thanks for being members. Appreciate it. You all take care now.